And welcome to this installment of the Toy Storage Nation series, TSN Conversations Unplugged. This series is based on questions we most often get at Toy Storage Nation. Today's topic is the state of boat and RV storage data. Today's participants are Tyson Huebner, Director of Research at Yardi Matrix, James Breunig, Director of Business Development at StorTrack, and James McLean, Head of Business Development at Radius. Thank you all three for being here. Before we begin, I was hoping you could briefly introduce yourselves and give us a bit of background. James, can we start with you?
Sure.
McLean.
Okay.
Sure. I'm James. I've been with Radius for almost 6 years now. So I joined in early 2020, where I first got to dip my toes in the self storage industry, and I've been there ever since. It's a fantastic industry to work in. It's evolving very quickly, and I'm just happy to be here with some other great folks today.
Thank you, James. And Tyson?
Hey, I'm Tyson Huebner with Yardi Matrix. I joined Matrix in 2023, but before that worked at Huebner, and I have about 15 years of experience in the traditional self-storage and RV and boat storage industries.
Thanks, Tyson. And James Bruning. And James is, what's the best way to differentiate between you, James M and James B today?
Sure. Or you can call me Jim. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've been with StorTrack since 2022. Previous to that, I spent about 15 years in the self-storage industry. Started with a smaller portfolio and then finished my career with one of the largest REITs, and then also worked with one of the largest privately held groups in the US. So I've seen a broad range of different styles and techniques, and so I really enjoy the business. I've learned something new every day, and really happy with the working with a great team right now. So
Thank you, James. And I am thrilled to have the three of you together. I feel like we're going to have a great conversation, a very well-rounded conversation around this topic. I do get a lot of questions regarding data and kind of where we are in the industry with all of that. So I do want to start on the development side and just looking at the overall market. And please describe the current state or how you see the current state of the RV and boat storage development market and where you see it going over the next 5 years. And I know that's a broad question. Who would like to grab that and start?
I
I
can.
can
Oh, go ahead.
either of us. RV and boat storage has definitely kind of come into the spotlight in recent years, but development activity it has slowed kind of from a peak in 2023, kind of similar to traditional self storage there, but continues to have get a lot of interest, and I think kind of the sky's the limit. It's very kind of early on in this as an institutional property type, and definitely there's been a lot more transaction activity and like larger groups getting into the sector.
Thanks, Tyson.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing. The demand right now just hasn't been met, so it's really tough to tell where the ceiling is. And again, it's growing so fast and evolving. I guess just with all the different um, offerings out there and the various operators. I mean, it's all over the place because you have developments that may have 10 units, and then you may have, larger developments that have, hundreds or, near 1,000 units on them. So growth though is looking good, and from all the reports I've read, and I'm an RVer. I guess I should probably be um, totally transparent. I actually store my RV in Tennessee. Um, but and again, different parts of the country, market specific. I think there's definitely some unique things we're starting to learn that really kind of show where those, high demand and needs area are. But as Tyson said, yeah, the development has slowed a little bit, but the need is the numbers I'm looking at are just extremely high.
Yeah, to go off what Jim was saying, I think the mismatch too is it's really hard for developers, or at least the ones that we talk with, to quantify that demand. Um, in storage, it shows up as high rental rates, but we're sort of limited in the data that we can collect because a lot of boat and RV operators don't post online rates. We're seeing sort of this evolve with Class A boat and RV product come into the spotlight, where they're running it like a sophisticated self storage facility with online rentals, a lot of amenities like power stations, covers, carports. But those are, I'd say, the exception currently rather than the rule. Where many of the boat and RV product we see is, I mean, it could just be uncovered parking stalls
Mhm.
with extra acreage on a self storage property,
Mhm.
and those are getting redeveloped into self storage. Many of the times in the conversations we're having, as development for self storage is becoming increasingly difficult, value add acquisition is getting a lot more traction. And one avenue these guys do it is they'll have an uncovered parking lot and they'll build traditional self storage on it, creating more demand for boat and RV parking as that supply kind of
Mhm.
gets cannibalized by self storage. But it's still hard to figure out, or quantify the demand for it because you can be coming from all over. Like Jim, do you live in Tennessee where you store your
No,
RV, or
I live in I live in Florida, so
right?
that's why I leave my RV up in Tennessee, and then when I want to skip out of here when it's hot, uh, I head up that way. But in Tennessee is a great example, and so I've watched this stuff just
Yeah, yeah.
besides just my professional interests, and it's interesting. I'll just give a quick story. There's a small town in Tennessee that has like 3,000 people, but it's near the Smoky Mountains.
Mm,
And so that's like when you start, and this is like you were saying, is that as people try to use data to quantify, does this make sense or is this a great location? There's so many different market variables with this compared to self-storage.
Mhm.
But a lot of it has to do with traffic.
mm-hmm,
If you are, like for example, it was an I storage, which was interesting, out in the middle of nowhere, had over 200 covered boat and RV spaces, literally in this little community. I'm like, how did they pick this spot? And they were full. They had like two open spots. You look at the demographics, it doesn't look phenomenal. And their rates were great. Everything was good. And then you start looking at, the communities around it. And then you start looking at how far people are willing to travel, which is farther than self-storage. But everything funneled past this. So again, I think location is
Mhm.
really a critical factor. And then also the demand, parks, the Smokies, um, Knoxville, all those areas that are up in there. So again, being around some of those areas, sometimes the demographic numbers it's tough to wrap your head around it to make
Mhm.
sense. And a lot of times when I talk to people, if nobody is there doing it already, it's like, where's the proof? How do I know
yeah.
that I'm going to get that money?
Mhm.
And that's where it's like chicken or the egg, you know?
Like you want to be a first comer and roll a dice on it. We're seeing that with like climate control too. Do you want to be the first climate control facility in a market? There's this constant like pent up demand for a more luxury, product, but it's a little bit risky.
Right?
One of those things I get calls all the time, and folks throughout the country will try to describe the location that they're at. And I always say you need to work with a feasibility expert who is this is what they're doing day in and day out, and they need to look at your specific location and a number of factors that they take into it. There's no generalizations. Also, the fact could be there could be another boat and RV facility that is going to be built that's just not staked in the ground yet, right? And
Right.
so there's a lot of things that need to be looked at. You just can't assume because I have gotten this. Well, I have a boat or RV and I couldn't find a place, and this just seems like a good area to put one. Gut feeling you shouldn't go by. You need to work with a specific feasibility study on your project and not just the location, but also the unit mix, right? Because it all comes back to the rental rates that you're going to get. And is the unit mix you're looking for justified by what you can try to achieve in your rental rates, and that could be changed around as well. But that leads to another part of this. Are you seeing more standalone boat and RV facilities being built? Are you seeing kind of hybrids, whether they're putting in traditional storage with it, flex space? What are you seeing more? Or are you kind of seeing a mixture?
We're seeing, I guess we're kind of seeing a little bit of a mixture, but I think, when you look at like I'm in Florida, obviously, so I pay attention to what just my surroundings. I live near the coast. But you're seeing, I mean, the enclosed higher end, not always like hundreds of units, but maybe 50 units or building out in phases. But they build them out, and that's what James had mentioned as far as like even tracking rates and things. These fill up so fast that this now becomes like this becomes an asset, like a personal asset. It's not like you don't have the turnover, I don't think, that you have in storage.
Hmm.
So again, it's another kind of wrinkle in it. But yeah, it's a lot of and again, the flex space obviously is coming on strong.
Hmm.
But it this becomes like an asset. So like you have this big RV or whatever. These people take these spots and they just don't vacate,
Hmm.
unless something crazy happens for the most part. So and
That's a great
the lease up
part.
time is so fast.
Really?
Yeah. The great part of this too, would you say there's community feel that's built amongst the boat and RV storage clientele that once they come in, they don't want to have to move. They want, if you're providing the services and the protection and the security and all of that, they don't want to have to move. But it does seem to have at these facilities, I've been told over and over again by owners, it becomes a real community feel between them, but also amongst their experts, or excuse me, their customers at their facilities.
Yeah, I think that's a big difference between dedicated RV and boat storage and like parking at a traditional self-storage property with some parking spaces as well. And something that, I think is separates RV and boat storage from self-storage. Even though a lot of parking is available at traditional self-storage properties, it's a different vibe.
Hey, my mind kind of goes to, I don't know if you guys, this news broke you across your desk, but there was a portfolio of like Class A, really gorgeous boat and RV storage product in Texas that I think wasn't able to hit its projections, and it was up for sale or something like that. And they kind of, it was gorgeous, like paved carports enclosed, but there was so much boat and RV supply in that area, and it wasn't all Class A product. It wasn't apples to apples, but I don't think they're able to fill their facilities the way they thought they would. And so I'm curious, like Tyson and Jim, like is boat and RV storage where people would leave their parking spot to go to a nicer facility, um, or is it like space is space how traditional self storage is, where if I'm happy with my rate, there's no real reason for me to move my stuff. And like I guess what's that catalyst to upgrade to a Class A unit from just uncovered parking?
I I think one of the things, the big difference there's two things. I'm sure Tyson and James, both of you guys hear this, is somebody's going to come in and they're going to build a self storage, and they're gonna build a better mousetrap, right? The
Yeah, we're Class
difficulty
A.
is you will get very few people to move from one self storage to another self storage. But if you come in and you're surrounded by dirt lots and you put up covered uh, Class A, enclosed, feel safe, those people will flock to you so fast. And that's really kind of the big difference between those two, the two asset classes, I think. So whenever they do that, I think there's opportunity. Texas, though, and again, one of the things that we started tracking now is we put an actual square foot per capita number on just parking space, which is still difficult because typically they're built in low residential,
Yeah.
not high population areas. So again, it's still a little bit of a crapshoot. But what we're seeing is once you get above 4 square foot per capita, um, the rates either uh, level off or go into a pretty steep decline. Texas is one of the ones I mean, again, depends where you're looking. If you have the right median household income, there's certain other drivers, but Texas just, and again, that's kind of a wild west, literally. You know, there is everybody that's got a lot's throwing it up, and so that one's a tough one to tell.
I know this goes against everything we've been saying about not giving generalizations. And we often talk about the boat and RV storage for Class A. It is not an oversaturated market or an oversaturated asset class. But are there certain areas geographically that you are finding, a bunch were built and there is some saturation starting to happen? And again, I know that's a more general question.
Yeah, I would say like Texas is like that perfect example where it doesn't quite fit the if you build it they will come, or they might, but not in the timeliness that you need to hit your projections and pay off your loan balance. Um, it's really hard to quantify the demand piece of it, right? Because like what James was saying, like you could have a facility lease up overnight because you're pre-leasing it and you're the best and best in the market. But how do you quantify that demand, and how do you know how big is too big, right? Because these are also massive facilities, tons of carports. I just don't think we're filling. And operationally, to my knowledge, there's not like too many third-party management groups who do boat and RV storage, or who can like take it from a developer and handle the lease-up period and handle this type of clientele. So it's another like big gap of getting money into the asset class at scale.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd agree. Texas. I mean, I just look at like advertised rate growth, and certainly Texas has kind of trailed the rest of the country. Also, parts of Florida, Jacksonville, and Sarasota. Um, there's also a few kind of Midwest markets that have seen a lot of development. When I say a lot of development activity for RV and boat, it's like two or three properties over the past few years, but sometimes those are massive properties. And in our latest RV and boat storage report, looks like Kansas City and Minneapolis were also trailing on rent growth and had some recent supply.
Michigan is another one that, and I don't know if you get a lot of questions on that one, Tyson, but like a lot, I talk to a lot of people who look at, again, because being around the Great Lakes and things like that, the problem is there's just so much land and again, indoor storage or something of that nature, um, probably is doing better. But again, it's seasonal too. That's the other thing. When you look at some of the Midwest states, those tend to be 6 to 9 month leases, and those people do like vacate. Whereas if, for example, Florida, um, believe it or not, Washington, I don't know if you've noticed this, Tyson, but Washington is like one of the top
Mhm.
states now as far as like a rate growth. Um, and believe it or not, New Jersey is really popping up as far as especially new supply and higher rates. Um, that state is really, really doing great. But again, the Midwest, like I say, that's where it's really market specific. And what's that demand? Is there a squeeze on the land?
Mhm.
And is there the year-round appeal?
Quick question, Jim and Tyson. When you say rental rate growth, is that specifically for boat and RV parking, like as a nebulous term, like for all of it, or do you differentiate between uncovered, covered, and enclosed? And have you guys noticed any trends differently for those three different buckets of boat and RV storage? Like, is enclosed and covered getting more popular as people's RVs are getting more expensive? They want to take care of it,
Oh
or
yeah,
is
I from the rate perspective, again from what we're seeing,
yeah.
um, the the covered and enclosed, like I say, the difficulty is it leases up so fast, so it's tough
Mm.
to really get that good historical trend that we like to see. Like we with self-storage, we can go back 10, 11 years, right? And with this is it's going much faster, but you'll see huge jumps when, for example, let's say um, a community adds a couple of locations that have the enclosed and the covered. Covered is still covered we're seeing probably um, a little over $1, $1.20 a square foot, just because it's bigger enclosed space, so it's a little bit different. Covered we're seeing probably 70 to 80 cents a square foot, if I'm just rough numbers nationally. but it's pretty consistent. But it's growing. And I'll tell you, I'll just share one other quick story. We just did a national study and we looked at in-store online rates, and then we also looked at parking rates, just overall average unit rates. So we didn't do any particular sizes, classifications, anything like that. Within the last 3 months, parking has actually overtaken self-storage for the average rental unit per square foot. So, or not per square foot, sorry, average rent per unit. And it went past it pretty quick.
Do you think that's like a supply thing, or like demand's cooling off for storage, and there's just this double whammy oversupply cycle back to back that's causing that change in placement order?
Yeah, and then again, we looked at it over like a 6 month period, so we didn't want to just look at, obviously this time of year everything tends to kind of dip down a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah, rate trends overall, we're trending up. Obviously, there's markets dragging it down. Like I said, the boat and RV is a very unique space. But everything that I'm seeing, and especially when you look at like lease up, I mean, it is twice the speed of self storage. I can't really, unless you get into some oversaturated market. Um, but again, if you have the covered and if you have the enclosed, that's really, I think, where it's at.
Yeah,
Thanks, James. Oh, go ahead, Tyson.
we group kind of all the units together, but we do track enclosed, covered, and uncovered separately. But I think that's interesting because we've also seen, parking rate growth outpacing self-storage recently, and even though there is some new supply, I think because that supply leases up quicker, that rate growth recovers faster with parking units versus traditional storage.
I think, I mean, jump in here if I'm off mark here, but also the type of product they're building is like Class A now. Like people want this premier boat and RV parking facility that can command these like higher rental rates as opposed to like maybe the uncovered dirt lots that historically have served the same purpose.
And James, I'm going to just interject here so that anybody that's listening that may not know what we mean by Class A, Toy Storage Nation defines Class A facility as four things, and they're pretty simple, but they're important. It needs to be covered in some manner, whether that's canopy or enclosed. It needs to be gated, it needs to be fenced, and it needs to be paved in some manner. And materials like True Grit and whatnot can count for that as well. But it's for the reason is folks are buying very expensive toys, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they want them protected and secured. And on top of that, providing amenities, right? These are folks that have the money for it. They want the conveniences of that. So I just wanted to kind of take a step back. I should have put that out there when we first started because you'll hear the term Class A come up a lot. And we'll be talking about Class A versus non-Class A a lot as we go through this. Do you mind if we switch over now to the sales side and, unless you have anything else on the development side, but I just wanted to get your take. What's the current state of the sales market for boat and RV storage facilities? And of the ones that are being sold, and I don't know if you have the ability to track this or no, but the ones that are being sold that might not be at the Class A level, are there improvements being done to, bring them up in that level? What has the sales activity been the last few years?
I mean, we just pulled this for our fall RV and boat storage report, and the transaction markets remained active, although nowhere near where it was in kind of 2022, 23. It's very kind of similar to storage in that way. I think as of November, we tracked about those 55 sales so far this year, which is pretty similar to last year. I'm actually above 23. I'm sorry, 21, 22 were the peak years for sales. And pricing is up slightly as well. So kind of transaction volume is up. We don't have much insight into whether or not people are upgrading facilities, but we do have some loan data that, maybe we can pull in, um, dig into and see if there's any of that happening. I would expect there is some. And actually, I believe James earlier mentioned third party management. Um, in the last year, there haven't been the kind of top owners of RV and boat storage, which, there's not very many and they don't own very many properties. They've been a little bit less active, but it looks like there's been some investment groups active and they're using some of those top owners as managers, Rec Nation and A Affordable. So it does look like that side of the business is picking up, even as those groups have been less active.
Some quick numbers for the addition expansions versus just the overall. And again, we're still working obviously on getting the process correct. But what we're showing, like out of we're looking at about 248 projects right now that we're tracking. Around 44 of those are basically upgrades, putting canopies on, things of that nature, expanding.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sorry, James, did you have anything to add?
No, there's no hard data like to report on, but it's just mostly anecdotal where people are, like I said, replacing the dirt lots with self storage though. In some instances, they'll put a canopy over if, like Mark deals in the Sun Belt and Florida specifically. But I wonder if it's going to create more demand as these uncovered lots get replaced with traditional storage, especially like high barrier entry markets. Like we see California deals doing that. They're redeveloping to get better NOI based out of just traditional storage product, and it should create more demand for boat and RV storage.
Yeah, California is a perfect example just because of all the entitlement issues.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's a huge chunk of it. There's a big focus.
he said Washington too,
Again,
right?
with the larger groups too, just the traditional self-storage operators are eyeing it. So
And James, do you think Washington has like similar drivers, like just like the West Coast, like people road trip up there? You think you mentioned Washington
yeah,
as one of the
again,
states?
if you look at Washington, there's just so many recreational opportunities. And then if you're an RV or not, my in-laws, believe it or not, they're out in Arizona, so they do this. There's like a Washington Trail, or so I don't know what it is, but there's a loop that these people do, and they literally kind of, it's like this annual pilgrimage every year, and so they keep their stuff out there.
Hmm.
Um, which kind of brings me to another interesting point too. A lot of people are trying to track like vehicle registrations and things like that to try and, but like I said, I'm a kind of a perfect example. I live in Florida. I keep my RV in Tennessee. I just don't find a whole lot of traction in that because a lot of people do keep their RVs further away. And I also like in Florida, anecdotally again, I'm in the southern part. People that live around us also have their RVs in northern Florida or Gainesville or Ocala, um, areas that is on their way out of the state, but it's easy to get on the interstate and do things like that. But I do think the recreational aspect is huge. Lake Tahoe is another anomaly. If you want to look at something where you just like, I don't even know how to make these numbers work, but they do,
Mhm.
you know? So yeah, the recreational side is obviously huge.
Of the folks that are getting into this in companies and funds, whether it be developing or buying and then, upgrading, are you typically seeing it's independence? Is it larger, funds coming in, family office? Are you seeing larger boat and RV storage facility companies coming in and kind of gobbling, the independence up? Where are you seeing, folks come in from? Because we often tell people that the great thing about this market is independents can still get in. There's room for folks to still get in on their own. So I'm curious to see what you're seeing as far as who is getting into all of this.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think RV and boat storage is very fragmented. I think the last time I looked at ownership data, the top five companies only owned, I think, like 7% of the market. And that compares to storage, where the top five companies own 25% and manage 35% of the market. So it's definitely more of the independent owner operator profile. There are investment groups getting into it, but they haven't made a huge splash. I mean, there's just not really um, the acquisition opportunities to kind of, buy $1 billion worth of RV and boat storage. It would take you 20 years to do that. So, and it's the same on the development side. It's a lot of more independent, which is somewhat similar to storage, but RV and boat storage is definitely more, um, independent and mom and pops.
Barriers to entry and just initial cost and things like that too, just make it, like I say, what I see a lot of, and again, I travel around, um, and I'm always fascinated by it because there's so many different variations. But there are a lot of small people. They have 5 acres and they can, they can do it in phases and economically. So it's really tough. And the other thing is, in Florida here with all the housing communities, we're working with one group right now, and they're incorporating it. They're putting like 200, 300 spots they're trying to figure out how to work it in as part of their that development. And some of those you don't even see. That's the other thing to really pay attention to.
And the
Got it.
housing development group is building carports on like their multifamily area.
Hmm.
Oh wow, that's crazy. We see that sometimes for like traditional self storage, like big multifamily builders will parcel out for like a 3 or 4 story public storage or something like that.
There's a project right now, believe it or not, in Colorado, where they're going four stories underground with self-storage
Wow.
under the building.
Wow.
We've been surprised that some of the larger home developments where there's land haven't thought to, partner with a company or do it themselves and build about an RV storage facility that would be very convenient for their, folks that live in that community. We keep waiting to see it pop up. We obviously out here, we're in Arizona, so we do see some of the communities that are building the RV garages to allow for it. So we keep thinking we're surprised we haven't seen that done yet.
I mean, 100%. Also, it builds that community aspect, like you mentioned, where people talk and like recommend one another for a great amenity
And it's
apartment.
amenity for the homeowners too. It helps them
Yeah.
kind of sell to a very
So
specific
it's a big issue
demographic.
for the homeowners association, right? Because a lot of this that it's being driven, one, folks are buying these toys, right? We know COVID spurred it, but it doesn't stop. People are still buying them. You're having the baby boomers hit a certain age where they want to have fun and they want the toys. It's also become something that the younger generations are part of, right? They want to get out and recreate and have the freedom of a boat or RV. It's not grandpa's camper in the backyard anymore, right? But
Right.
HOAs are the ones that are creating all the rules that aren't allowing the boats and RVs in their, association. So I totally get what Tyson's saying. It would be a great benefit. So, um,
I'll share one other anecdotal part too, is that um so with like the RV park industry itself, it's really transitioning to glamping, and the big hotel chains are getting into it. And as they continue to add more amenities, again, it's just another lure um, for people. And again, then where do you put your stuff?
When you're
So
not there, exactly. Do you do you guys think the how there's like all this like conversation in storage about the macro moving towards greater needs for space, average home size is getting smaller. Is this all pushing in the right direction for boat and RV storage demand as well? Like if my home is not that big, I'm sure like the parking garage will not fit my RV and camper, let alone the HOA allow it. Is that going to
I
be?
think that's I think that's a question, and that, believe it or not, I don't know if you've read like there's several boat manufacturers I know that are having financial issues right at the moment,
Hmm.
um, because of declining sales on the boat side. The RV side, though, I think is pretty solid, and uh, I still think the just the forecasted growth. And if you just look at the existing vehicles, and I think I stole this from one of your guys' reports I read. But they're forecasting like 50 to, there's a demand for 50 to 70 facilities, I want to say like per month to catch up with demand for like years to come. And, if you look, and again, this is site specific, so I tell everybody the same thing. Obviously, that doesn't mean you just go throw something up anywhere, but there is demand in these areas, and especially the faster growing. Again, Washington, another fast. It's a state that a lot of people are moving to. Florida again continues to grow, um, and when you look at rates, actually rates overall, Florida, believe it or not, what we're seeing anyhow is still leading when it comes down to the unit rents. Um, so it's like everything, all the indicators are there to say that this is definitely on a trajectory up, and we don't really know where the cap is.
On the rental rates, it sounds like it's local, but it's also regional. And I know we talked a little bit, and Tyson kind of touched on areas where we're seeing up and down. Are there anything else, other trends you're seeing in rental rate? Obviously going up in most areas, but anything else that you guys wanted to add on that, or do we really cover it?
One of the things that I highlighted in our RV and boat storage report was there was the highest growth in some of the more urban markets. LA, Bay Area, New York, Connecticut. And granted, like a lot of these, there's not really nearly as many facilities. They're all kind of like, pretty far out in the suburbs, but these are areas that I think have been overlooked by developers. There's just like not a lot of parking nearby. That's also kind of where you see some of the highest rates. But some of that, our report, we had kind of had a mix of unit sizes, and the larger unit sizes, um, kind of the 12 by 40 to 12 by 50, those haven't seen as much growth. And it was interesting to me where they have seen the most growth. It was Grand Rapids, St. Louis, Jacksonville, Tampa. So quite a bit different than like parking rates overall for the larger unit sizes.
Jacksonville is that's an amazing story. If you look at that, just the sheer volume that's there and the rates that they're commanding. And again, after watching it for a couple of years, and again, obviously you're close to the coast, and several different factors, median household income, and other things. But that is an excellent example of where those rates can go when the right product is delivered. And that's what's driving it.
Mhm.
A lot of those were dirt lots and parking out in the field, or as those facilities have upgraded, and like Rec Nation and some of the other big players come into the market and really kind of start driving it up. It's amazing, but the sheer number of facilities when you look at it, and even if you compare it to like a Phoenix or something like that, it's a big number.
And this came out of a couple things you guys have said, but an additional question is looking at the larger players. Tyson, maybe if you could mention a few of them. And you mentioned that some of the larger players have gotten into the third-party management side, and that makes a lot of sense, right? They've been doing this longer, they have multiple locations, they see the data, they're able to see what works, what doesn't, and then share it with other facilities. Are you seeing that, other larger players are starting to get into that side of things as well?
It's been slow. There's not a ton of product, and like I mentioned, there's only 55 properties that sold this year. The top five owners we're tracking are Rec Nation, A Affordable, McCreechy Group. Their brand is the Honeybee RV Storage, Spare Box, and Outrig. Also, Madison Capital has a brand, Bluegate Boat and RV Storage. Um, but those top six owners, they've really amassed those portfolios only over the last 6 years. So really, 5, 6 years ago, there really were no large scale players in the sector. So I mean, it's pretty impressive. They've been able to grow as fast as they have. Rec Nation now I think has around 70 properties.
Right.
But again, it's hard to grow to 100, 200 properties when there's only 50 properties that sell a year.
Yeah, Outrig is an interesting. That's they're another one that's kind of taking it to the next level with the Class A. If you look at some of their facilities, they literally have repair and like parts and much. And again, that I don't know how many locations it's at, but they are really incorporating all of the add-ons or trying to. So that's an interesting one that I just recently looked at.
So if you guys don't mind, I want to move a little bit into the data you have, what you are tracking, what you can share. And with regards to the facilities that you are tracking that do boat and RV storage, are you tracking separate standalone facilities, separate from the hybrid facilities? How are you kind of dividing that? Or are you dividing that? And can
We
you
do
share any numbers?
oh
We only track traditional self-storage, so my exposure to boat and RV is more so from self-storage operators who offer a boat and RV component. I don't have like the hard numbers on like those statistics right now, but they're primarily located in like Sunbelt, Florida, Texas would be where they have for like a pretty sizable portion of their net rentables from boat and RV parking.
yeah, so we do track hybrid and dedicated boat and RV, and that's where dedicated boat and RV rates are surpassed. Believe it or not, for a long time, hybrids actually led the pricing, and now the dedicated boat and RV are surpassing them, especially with the covered and enclosed. And again, I'm talking in generalities, but overall, the dedicated are coming up and going past when it comes to rate, but we do track them separately.
And James, I know I'm putting you on the spot, so if you do not have this information right offhand, but I was curious to get what your current numbers are for just overall and then standalone.
As far as like the overall average rental rate,
No, as far as just the number of facilities, if do you track the number of facilities standalone?
yeah. So we have. Give me 1 second.
And again, I know I'm throwing you right on the spot. I know I expect
No,
you to have this all
I,
memorized.
no. Like I said, I love this segment, so I
You're
kind
not
of.
my personal Alexa.
Right now we're tracking about 28,500 roughly hybrid facilities. And then there's an additional 4,800 dedicated boat and RV. And that doesn't really take into consideration there. I left some numbers out of here because we have some that do have some. It's a couple, probably a couple hundred, not enough to. But to give you an idea, square footage wise, about 200 million net rentable square feet for dedicated, and about 345 million net rentable square feet just of parking for the hybrids.
Thank you, James. And Tyson, did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, we define RV and boat storage as and track properties that are over an acre where their primary business is RV and boat storage. And we're in 180 markets. I think we're up to about the top 250 MSAs in the country. We track 2,122 RV and boat storage facilities that fit that definition. And then they're over in our market coverage, they're over 15,000. And our self-storage coverage is properties over 25,000 square feet. But of those, I think it's about 36,000 properties. There are 15,000 self-storage properties that offer some kind of parking for rent. And when we just started kind of estimating parking square footage, but when I've looked at top operators portfolio, kind of the average square footage of parking at a traditional storage property was like 4,000 square feet. So they're pretty small. Um, and it kind of ranges, from, over 100,000 square feet to, maybe just like 10 parking spaces.
Thanks, Tyson. Of what you're tracking, we keep talking about Class A, it's covered, whether that's enclosed or canopy, it's gated, fenced, and it's paved in some manner. At this point, are you able to pull out Class A versus the other facilities, or what level can you pull out? Are you tracking covered versus non-covered, or are there any other parameters at this point? And we know that what's amazing that you've done on the data side is it's quickly, this is a newer asset class, and you guys have, your companies have quickly evolved in this space and what you are tracking. So just curious on that.
Yeah. So of those 2,100 RV and boat storage facilities, 803 of them fit that definition that you just gave: covered, gated, fenced, and paved. And we track additional amenities as well, like
And that's what we're showing, probably about 1,150 out of the number. But again, we're like I said, like we're all different sizes. So that's everything from the guy with 10 spaces to, but the class A is about 25%, probably something like that, of what we're showing.
Thank you.
Yeah, when
And
we originally started kind of classifying RV and boat storage properties, we had a pretty stringent definition. They had to include amenities like wash bay, dump station, air station, um, and there's very few properties that offer those amenities of that kind of 800 that fit your definition of Class A.
And that's something that it actually is good news, because those are our facilities that, looking at the breadth of what they can do, right, operationally, those are amenities and services they can be adding in, and kind of
Absolutely.
pumping up what they're doing. And one other thing I forgot to mention too is we do have a Class A kind of a plus level, and that's when you start to be adding in the technology, right? Whether it be security or your software or things like that that have become so important across the board. So thank you for that. Can you tell me who's typically coming to you for data on the boat and RV storage side, and how are they using this data?
It's mostly GCs who have either built boat and RV for others or built traditional self storage and have an interest in the asset class of boat and RV storage. So they're typically coming to us. The primary question to ask is like the rental rate comps, just to get a sense for what they can achieve if they fill the property or hit stabilization. These are usually people who like generally have a sense that there's demand for the product in the area they're working out of, but they just need to get better insights into what they can charge essentially for uncovered versus adding a carport. That's like the general archetype that asks about boat and RV data.
Yeah, for us, it's kind of all over the place. I've talked to and we've worked with people who are just getting started and want to develop a facility or two. And then also as James said, a lot of investors. Mostly, a lot of the investors, interestingly, are getting into this space. I feel like I already have a lot of experience in self storage, so we have a lot of those people that are clients as well.
Thank you. And of what you can tell me, and this question actually came from our editorial director, um, and it is interesting. How are you getting your data? What?
We
Are
just
you able
scrape.
to share that?
Yeah, we just do good old web scraping. So any facility with an online presence, you can see their rental rate trends, and then through aerial imaging, you can map out the net rentable and see which is enclosed, covered, or uncovered. And then it's kind of the same process to see for incoming new supply. Usually goes to a zoning board meeting or a site plan floating around somewhere, and you can pick up on keywords to gauge the intent to build.
And again, that I think we're all pretty similar on how we do it, but um, one of the things what makes us different because I hear a lot of people use the AI terminology. The one human aspect that I think the three of us bring is that there's always nuances, and then figuring out how to quantify those nuances, and it's a continuous improvement of the process. So let's say we find something that wasn't there yesterday or we didn't pick it up, then we enhance it and we just keep it enhancing it. We'll just give you a quick throw out a big number. We run about 25,000 different individual scripts every day, and that's growing. So it's not just the AI portion of it, but you have to know how to ask those questions, which websites to access to, for developments and any type of data that you're looking for. And that it's ever changing because websites are updating, processes are changing. It's constantly in flux, but it's an interesting process.
Yeah, we run web scrapers as well, but we also have a pretty big research team. I think there are over 1,000 people who kind of dig a little bit deeper. And then actually for rents, we get a portion of rents just from manually scraping websites as well. So it's a little bit more hands on.
Thank you. And I do, and this will be the last question. I am very cognizant of our time here. This is kind of an out of the way question in some ways, but we really started covering other areas with Toy Storage Nation because we are toys overall, right? And so one area of focus that we've had recently is marinas. For a couple reasons. It might make sense for folks who are already in the marina market owners to be looking at boat and RV storage as another smart asset class for them to be in because they understand the clientele. We understand that boat slips are limited. It's hard to expand marinas, so there's likely a need there. And there's other synergies with marinas. Truck parking is another one. Just because there's such a great need for truck and commercial parking. It's a huge issue. You may have also seen trucks parked on the side of the road, but it can sometimes take, a driver an hour a day to find a spot. So couple reasons it fits with boat and RV storage is one, again, this is just another asset class, but also facilities, if they aren't filled up, are opening themselves up to truck parking. And you might also have a piece of land that it initially doesn't make sense for Class A boat and RV storage, but it can make sense for truck parking, or it's something that you could be phasing RV and boat storage Class A over time and start with a more open truck parking facility. And then also we've been covering flex space. One, it's the same investor developer pool. Everybody's just looking for investments and development that makes sense right now and numbers pan out, but also it can often sometimes make sense to include flex space into a boat and RV storage facility design. It can help with getting the entitlement process through sometimes, and that you're going to have storefronts that are bringing in revenue, that type of thing. But that being said, I'm sorry for being so long-winded. Are your data companies covering any of these areas, marina? Are you breaking out commercial truck parking versus the other, or flex space? Are you covering that separate than self-storage? And I apologize, that was a very long-winded question.
I the we are well, we track marinas, but we do not. We're not as deep into the weeds as far as like any type of developments or rates are more difficult to come by. That's really going to be probably more of a manual process, just because, like you said, most of them are sold out. And the process for development is lengthy. In Florida, it's about 8 years. So it's a very slow moving process, and to put the resources to it that it needs, I don't know. We don't know how big the pool is, right? Um, Although like the truck parking coming on fast, huge need. We're looking at it. It's probably going to get some attention coming up here in the next year. But again, again, that's a developing space. And when you start comparing numbers to like overall storage facilities or things of that nature, just to put it to scale, to go, does this make sense to, make the capital investment to capture that data? That's where where it's kind of we're taking a second look at it. So,
Thanks, James. Tyson or James, did you have anything to add?
We've had a lot of questions about we don't track marinas. As far as I know, we haven't looked into it, but we've had a lot of questions about outdoor industrial storage, which I think is similar to what you're talking about for truck parking.
Mhm.
Because a lot of institutional investors are interested in it, and it does share, definitely shares some characteristics with RV and boat storage. Um, we do cover commercial, so industrial, retail, and I think it kind of is in between storage and industrial. So something we could look into. We do cover flex space, but it's a bit more tricky, and I'm not as familiar with our commercial data.
Yeah, we stay pretty focused on traditional self storage, but it's kind of like a byproduct of those asset classes not being as mature as self storage yet either. Like the information is not as readily available online for our systems to scrape and categorize the data on it, which I think is like the huge advantage of investing into those asset classes because it hasn't been gobbled up by private equity yet, anything like it. I'm highly interested in flex space and the demand drivers around it, but it's so difficult to track the comps around it that we haven't been able to do it at scale yet.
Got it. And tell me if I'm wrong, maybe in part of the parking number, since sometimes you're looking at parking numbers overall, some of that is likely also being utilized by trucks and commercial, I would think,
For sure.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
instance, we went and did a facility tour years ago, and this is something Andrew Jones of Truck Parking Club and brings up, and he's on our advisory board. Is he kind of got this idea for all this because he saw a truck that was parked in the boat and RV storage facility that we were at, and went, "Oh, wait a minute, there must be a great need." So I would think you're covering some of that, but it's not really pulled out from the others. Would that be right?
yes, I would agree.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't think they would classify it any differently on their websites.
And I'll give you another quick interesting story. There was a development down here that went. It was an old drive-in. It went to Boat and RV, and recently it just went to full commercial truck parking.
Got
And
it.
again, it was full boat and RVs, in literally within I would say it was probably a year. I guess I should say a little maybe longer than a year. I converted over. It's mostly truck parking now. So yeah, again, it's an asset that's interesting. That's for sure.
Do you
And
think
would
that's because the rents are higher for truck parking? Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it looks more. It looked like maybe three or four different fleets. So kind of what came in and just swooped in and like occupied it. So that I think that's where, especially if you can get it, and again when you're doing that, and I think that's where I think the rental process may be a little bit different than the traditional rental for like a boat and RV, where you may be doing fleet contracts and
Mhm.
things of that nature, which would be a little bit more difficult to track. So
That's one of the areas that was brought up to me a few years ago. And until someone brings it up to you and you says, wait a minute, haven't you seen all those trucks parked everywhere? It doesn't hit you. Just like if you're not in boat and RV storage. until you get into this industry and then you start seeing all the RVs that are parked at the Walmart parking lot at night, right? And the need for it. So want to thank Andrew Jones for kind of bringing me up to speed and all of that. So, I want to thank the three of you for your time. This has been a great conversation, and to get the three of you together. What I want to do before we go, if you could, we could go around, give your name, your company, your contact information. If there's anything else you feel like we didn't cover briefly, that you wanted to add in, that if there was something important still that we didn't cover. Tyson, let's go ahead and start with you.
Sure. So my name is Tyson Huebner. The spelling is right there under my picture. My email is tyson.huebner@yardi.com, yardi.com.
And
Uh, James at StorTrack.com. And again, you can StorTrack.com is another way you can just reach out if you have any questions. I just want to say I'm really grateful to be part of this. I'm glad I got to finally speak with Tyson and James, because like I said, we're always crossing paths and running around. So it was great to sit on with you guys as well.
Great to have a RV storage user.
Oh yeah, get your hands on boots on the ground insights, Jim.
And that's why I'm really into this, believe it or not.
Yeah, thank you for having us on, Amy. You can reach me on LinkedIn, James McLean, MCLEAN, or you can shoot me an email at jmclean@unionrealtime.com. But if you go on the Radius Plus website or try to book a demo, 99.9 be your guy. So thank you for having us on. Good talking to you guys.
thanks, James. And I want to give my contact information for anybody who may be getting to this podcast from our YouTube, not our website. My name is Amy Biggs. I'm president of Toy Storage Nation. You can reach me at my namesake. It's amy.bix@toystoragenation.com. You can also find a ton of content and information. And really, what we're calling it now is storage redefined, because we're really covering toy storage, right? The breadth of Class A boat and RV storage, flex space, where does that fit in? Truck parking, marina, and you name it, other toys. And the website has lots of case studies, reports. Tyson had mentioned Yardi report. We put reports such as that up. New content going up every day. We have this podcast, but we also do full day workshops. For next year, it will be we're calling it renaming it masterclass. So it'll be a storage redefined masterclass. Our next one will be April 10th in Las Vegas. We will have information up on our website here in the likely the beginning of January 2026. So I want to thank all three of you and everyone listening. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.